Hello, nurses, and welcome to the Healthy Nurse Connection. This is a podcast where we talk about all things nursing, whether you're a seasoned nurse, a new nurse, a nursing student, or even thinking about becoming a nurse. This is a podcast for you. We talk about nursing, the hardships, the wins, the goals, and how to live your best nursing life. I'm Leslie Catalano, your host, and this is the Healthy Nurse Connection. Hi, and welcome to the show today. So this is Leslie Catalano, your host, and I am with Janine Kelbach, who is a very influential person in my life. She probably does not know that yet, but she has been. And I really wanted to talk today because you guys know that I've gotten into freelance writing and I've talked a little bit about it, but some of you might have questions about how I even got into that and how it's going. So I wanted to have an episode where we kind of dive into my personal journey. And I thought Janine was a great person to have because she can kind of explain her journey with it because she's much further along than I am. And we could potentially answer any questions or give you guys the information that you want today. So welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for being so kind with your words. I didn't know you admire me that much. So thank you. I am very humbled by that. And I think it's cool that we're doing this like joined episode because
Yes.
I always feel like in business, you look for the person who's just a little bit ahead of you. And like you said, sometimes you look at me who's been doing this for like 10 years and I might be too far, but I can always like scoot back, right? And then there's you that are just a little bit further. So I think you're like a great role model for people that want to get into this. And I think, yeah, I think we should just tell our story and I will tackle as many questions as possible and try to guide you guys along the way.
Yes, I think this is going to be really great. So one of the biggest things that I guess I want to talk about is how, because you have the Savvy Nurse Writer community. So, and I found you a little, not right away. I found you a little bit later in this whole writing process for myself. I started, it's probably been almost 3 years now. In my very first like writing job, I reached out to a travel nurse agency and I wrote a blog for them because part of me was like, I want to see if this is a real thing or how easy this is.
Yes.
So I took one like course about it was more like a copywriting course than like a content writing course. But anyway, I took it. I was like, okay, let's see what I can do with this. And then I got like a job where they paid me $250 to write a blog post. And I was like, oh my goodness, this could actually
Right.
be something. And then I found you in the Savvy Nurse community. And then it went from like, let's see if I can do this to like, now I'm really starting to consistently, get some work and some jobs. So I want you to talk a little bit about what your community is and like what you guys do.
Well, I like that you had the same mindset as I did going into it because I didn't believe it was like real either. And you know why? It's because how many people have invited us to their makeup party or their tasting party or their this party and then you got to be a consultant, but to be a consultant you have to give them a lot of money and then you have to host parties and nobody wants to do that, but it's the only way and then it's like that whole MLM thing. It's not for
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
that's what I kind of was scared that this would be, or I was just like, I just didn't believe that people paid for writers. And I think it's like now that I look back at it, I'm like, why would I not think that? There's writers who literally have jobs writing. Like, why would they not get paid? Why would we not get paid for it? And so I did the same thing. I started writing and I actually didn't even tell anybody I was doing it because I didn't believe it until I had like money and it was a very little amount. And then I did it again. And then I did it. I'm like, okay, no, this is a real thing. This is a real thing. And like you said, then you start to like ramp up some clients and some paid work. And you're like, wow, this could really be a thing. And it's definitely, I would say, a side hustle for most people, most nurses, because they do it on the side of their full-time job, but it's that extra money where you don't have to go in for another shift if you don't want to. And you get to use your brain in a different way. You get to be creative and have different conversations than we do at the hospital all the time. So I started this community because back when I started it, people like you wanted to know, like, how do we do this? What happened? So I started to coach some nurses on how to do it. And then I realized, wow, they got results because they were able to actually leave their jobs and they did this full time. And then I was like, okay, if I could help those two people, maybe I could help more people. So we did like little cohorts. So we had like 7 to 10 people in them, and I got them through them and they got results. And then I was like, okay, we need like a free community because a lot of people are interested, but then maybe they're not willing to pay yet again, because they're in that phase of like, this can't be real. And so then they don't go forward with it, but they still are curious about it. So that's how we had like the free group that you were a part of. And then you
Yes.
start, and the people that are serious and really want to do it, they ask the right questions. And then you just get that person a little bit ahead of you that's like, hey, I just did this. Or you ask about rates, or you ask about clients. And it's a small world because a lot of times somebody's already doing what you want to do. So that's how
Right.
we create a community. And then it gives me that outreach to answer questions, to help people on the side if they need extra help or whatever. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really beneficial for because for me, like, I'd already spent some money taking writing courses or like just figuring out how the process worked. And so when I found you, I didn't have a lot of money to put up front for another course. I needed to start like making money. And so, or
Right.
to see if I could make money. And so really the things that helped me was one, being part of the Facebook community and just seeing what other people put on there, asking things. But your job board that you had that you could sign up to for free was, so I got my one blog article, and then I didn't have anything for quite a while. And then when I found you and I started like applying to your job board, and I'd get a little bit here and there. And the first job that I got from you, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got it, was doing educational writing because, I'm an
Uh-huh.
educator. And so I wrote like an educational course on, I think it was called like how to be a positive nurse, or how to like view nursing in a positive light, or something along those lines. And so I did that, and it was really great. It really like just enjoyed that type of writing. And so since then I've been done some other writing for educational like content companies like HealthStream.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I got another job through you too from that as well. So then it was just started to like build on itself. And so it was
Yeah.
just really like, I wouldn't have gone anywhere, I don't think, if I didn't use your job board, because that's really gave
Oh,
me
well,
the
that's
comp.
awesome to hear. That's that
Yeah.
snowball effect. Like, oh,
Yes.
it is paying out. It is paying out. And I think our job board is so cool because there's so many things that go into building a freelance business. And some people just don't want to be pitching all the time. They don't want their own clients. They just want the work, right? So
Right.
it's almost like that easy way. However, it doesn't mean there's jobs out there all the time. And however, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it because there's a lot of applicants, right? So there's that, there's ups and downs to it. And that's why we actually started the lead list that we have now. So every Friday, my team and I, we come up with the list of like companies that want freelance writers. They're full-time positions and they're all health based. They're full-time positions, remote positions, whatever. And the reason I put the full-time on there, we just had this conversation this morning in the community, is because people may not necessarily want a full-time person. They're just putting it on there to see who they can get. But if they hear from a contractor or somebody who could fill that gap for a little while, they may end up getting a full-time gig instead of being a full-time employee because they're just happy to have a writer that they enjoy.
Yeah.
And then I noticed like a lot of people are like hesitant to apply to a lot of those because it says you need a journalism degree or
Right.
an
Yes.
English degree. And then you think, well, do I gotta go back to school? And absolutely not. They, as long as you have some sort of samples and something you could speak to, and you have a bachelor's degree already, I mean, they're not gonna make you go back to school to take on a freelance writing job by any means. So I think it's just such a different industry than nursing that it's opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't realize before. And that's what's so cool about it though. You're constantly learning and we learn from each other. Like I said, in the community, it's just like without that, I think a lot of people would be stuck because you don't know how to grow. You don't know how to start. You don't know your next right step. And you get overwhelmed and then people they quit. See
Right.
it a
Yeah.
lot.
That's a very good point, that because I've hesitated on applying for jobs when it says you need like a journalism degree. but I didn't think that I should
Mhm.
just do it and just see what happens.
Just do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Yeah. And another like sneaky way to do it is to say I'm not going to use Hellstream because they're so giant. Say it's what's a small like health company. I'm just looking for something around my house here. I don't know. Gosh, let me think. Oh, I know. Hum is like Hum Nutrition. They're a company that has like all these different supplements. Huge space for nutritionists, huge space for nurses. And they have a blog, right? So you look at this company, and if they had a full-time position posted, I wouldn't necessarily, I might apply for the position, but that wouldn't be where I'd stop. I would go on LinkedIn, look for Hum, and look for the people that work for Hum, probably a cut manager, probably marketing manager, someone like that, and connect with them and say, hey, you guys pretend you never even saw the post. Hey, you guys need any help? And then they're like, oh my gosh, this is just perfect timing. We've been looking for someone, blah, blah, blah. And then, you're connected. But it also like opens up your mind to go, okay, Hum is one of many supplement companies. So who else can I do this with? There's
Yeah.
so many nutritional companies that it like blows your mind when you just go, well, I don't know who to write for. And then all of a sudden you get like that little spark and it's like, holy cow, I just came up with 100 different other companies that I could write for.
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of get that ball going even more and get more jobs.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up LinkedIn because listening to your podcast. So listening to your podcast has been extremely beneficial as well. Because as soon as when I'm like, how do I do this? You have like a show on how to do this. So
Oh man.
so one of them was about LinkedIn and how to use LinkedIn to query or like get information for jobs that way and like connecting with people because I think who you're talking to is like a lot of your connections are made from LinkedIn. It's just such like a big community.
Mhm.
And at the time I was like, I wasn't paying for LinkedIn. I was still just, using the free format, but you're really limited on who you can talk to and how many messages you can send. And so I was like, okay, I told myself, I'm going to pay for the monthly trial and I'm going to try this for 6 months and I'm going to see if it pays for itself. And then if it does, then obviously I will keep it. And honestly, it paid for
Mhm.
itself like in the first month. And it was the way I got my
See?
first like retainer client. So
Yeah.
like not only did it pay for that month, but it has continued to pay so it was just amazing that it, like
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to see how it works. And then by God, it worked.
And that's not to say like somebody who wants to do this right now, you should go buy LinkedIn, premium. Set up a really optimized profile first,
Yes. Yeah.
and then like again, like do those next right steps because you have to be. It's like you got to look at your schedule for like that month, right? And go,
Right.
okay, if I'm going to take advantage of this, I need to make sure I have time to use it and get results from it. And
Yeah.
it does pay off.
That was like,
I've met so many different people on there.
yeah, I think that was for me that it was about a year or a year and a half in my journey. So I was like well established on like where I was kind of heading. So that's when I decided to be like, okay, I think I want to up this a little bit more. I was just ready for that, but I had everything, all my ducks in a row up to that point.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
what you were mentioning before, like it's a feast or a famine, which is true because there'd be times when I had like multiple projects where I had no idea how I was going to get everything done at the same time. And then go and like
Yes.
2 months with nothing. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get any more work. So that's when I decided to try LinkedIn just to see what I could get out of it. And it really paid off.
Well, and I think too that feast and famine cycle, it's never when you want it to be, right? Like it's
Right.
never in January. A feast is never in January. A feast is always in July. You're
Yes.
like
I'm
trying to
beginning
like
to learn that too.
do all the things. Yes.
So like,
So
so right now,
it's
like all
funny.
the
Yeah.
companies who I've worked from before, like, cause we're taping this in February, they haven't reached out yet, but I'm not panicked because I have a retainer with another client. And then
Yes.
I'm like, I know that this is just a downtime, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, what I've noticed this year specifically, a lot of people have had like a very busy January in their company. So they're trying to like kind of get everything together. And now this past week, actually, I've gotten a few discovery calls because people are like, we want to start this project. We want to do this. So yeah,
They're
it's a
coming.
waiting game and it sucks. It sucks. But yeah, then it sucks when you lose clients. That sucks. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that suck, but it's not like, obviously I wouldn't keep doing it if it sucked that bad. I would go back to the hospital. And that's the thing too. You always just go like, you know what, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I
Right.
go back to full time or pick up shifts or whatever. And to me, it's not worth that because now it's like, I know I can do this. I know I can make a living from it if I want to. And it's something that's different and it keeps me at home and
Yeah.
it gives me flexibility. And I mean, there's so many pros to it that the fan, and sometimes you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. But you do.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
always works out. Everything
Yeah.
happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I've really kept it because there's several nurses that I've met online now on LinkedIn actually that do this full time. But
Yes.
I still have my full-time job as a faculty instructor for nursing, and I don't want to give that up because I love that, and it's a flexible
Yes.
schedule. But this writing thing it was a way for me to get that creative side of me again, because I feel like especially when you're a nurse and you give like so much of your energy in a job that's not creative, it's just like you go in and you just do this and this and this, that I really
Yes.
needed to find something just to relight my passion, for nursing in the field of nursing. And this was one way for me to do that. So I don't want to quit my day job. I really do want to keep this like PRN for myself, but it is a really nice to have consistent side income instead of having to pick up
Yes.
extra shifts at the hospital when you're already tired from your full-time job. It's easier to like make it work with your full-time family schedule.
It
I,
really is. And it's it's funny that you say it because I think most nurses want to stay at the bedside, even though like, oh,
yeah,
there's so many like negative things out there right now. But I think most nurses, we didn't go into nursing to stay at home and write. Like
right.
most of us still want the people, the patient connections, and using our brain for nursing. But I could see in the educational side, like it's curriculum, right? So it's like
Yeah,
it's not creative. It's not as exciting as you want it to be all the time. Like it can get repetitive and
yeah.
yeah, to
You can
use
only
your
get so
and I think
creative about ABGs.
right, exactly. Make it fun, make a song out of it. I don't know. But I think what's cool is like you could also have so many different types of clients. Like I just mentioned, like they sell nutritional stuff. You could do educational, you could do ebooks, you could do tech products. There's so many different ways. It's kind of like nursing, right? We have all these flexibility type of options. And again, it's almost like people always get stuck in that niching down area because we're all so multi-passionate
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But you do want to like start somewhere. And we actually did a master class on this yesterday and it was like light bulbs going off left and right. Oh my gosh, I finally got it, Janine. I finally got it because we go into it. We're just so like, I guess I'm an OB nurse, so I guess I should just write an OB and just about babies and moms. And it's like, no, there's so many other things. And so I think in the book, I think I have the 32 types of writing that you can do, but definitely in the course, I have all that. And like, it's just, there's so many options and which is cool. I mean, you never get bored, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, you were actually that's another area really helpful for me because not just about like niching down, but I didn't think that I was like a medical writer. Like I thought like a medical writer
Yes.
is like somebody who you're like giving your recommended opinion about how they should be doing this, like a doctor recommended opinion. I'm like, I'm not a doctor. You tell yourself I'm just a nurse. I can't like write those types of things. But then like you really like broke it down where it's like that's not really what you're doing. You're just explaining this concept to like the general public. And it's like, oh,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
what I do as a nurse. Like,
Yes.
and when
Or
you think,
other nurses. And it's
yeah,
funny that we don't think of the simplicity of it,
yeah.
really.
And then when you think about like people who are journalists who work for major, companies, they don't have medical degrees. They just know how to find the right people, ask them the right questions, and then write it from their perspective. So it's like, oh, so like I can do this. Like that
Yes.
was like a barrier that I had in the very beginning was like, well, I'm not qualified to write this, but really I am because I'm just
Right.
educating the general population about whatever topic is. and I have to have my references and I have to have like my background information and my experts, but I don't have to be the expert. I just have to find the expert.
Yes, exactly. And then yeah, and then highlight them as that thought leader in the piece for sure. I think too, another thing that you spoke about is just like having that mindset of I am good enough, I can do this. When I originally released Plan, Produce, Profit, the course, I just did plan, produce, profit. Like that's how it should work. There is a framework. This past year, I redid the entire thing and I put a new part to plan, produce, profit. And the first thing is mindset because I think it's something we all skip over. We're like, oh, it's fine. I don't need that. Oh, I have a growth mindset. Of course I do. That's why I'm doing this. But then you just run into roadblocks all the time and you paralyze yourself with fear. And it's like those that break through that are the ones that succeed because they just keep going. If you fail, you get up, you do it again. And it's funny because it's also like the parts where everybody was getting stuck in the course, I like released to the and more section because like people wouldn't pitch because they didn't have a website. People wouldn't, what was the other thing? Oh, they wouldn't send samples because they didn't have a sample in that area where they wanted to work in. So it's like there's so many like roadblocks and it's like there's so many ways to get around that I had to like restructure and go, this is the bare minimum that you need. Go get a client and then come back to the course and then keep going because if not, like you're going to be stuck and then you'll never do anything. And it's like this analysis paralysis, but it's in every, what I've noticed after starting a business is every business is the same. The framework for a business is the same throughout any business you're doing. But if it's your own business, no one's telling you to do it. So you have to
Right.
like tell yourself, I need to go get clients. I need to do this. I need to see what's working. I need to evaluate what didn't work and change it up and do it again. And it's funny. It's just so many things you learn over the years.
Yeah, I know it is funny because, you know, so I also started like a blog along with writing this. And I remember like planning out this beautiful calendar of like all the topics I was going to talk about and do.
Yeah.
Um, but half of those, I'm going to, no, probably like a majority of those never got written because they were for me and not for like a working client. So it's like
Yes.
I was getting paid to do it, I could do it. But if I wasn't, then I like just couldn't, I didn't get it done. So this year I'm trying to be more thoughtful about like my time because I think too that calendar did not really have like the true time that I had to do this type of work, you know, with kids and everything. But like
Yeah.
what I really do within my time. So I really kind of brought it way, way back.
Well, it's funny. If you go back in my podcast to like the beginning episodes, there was no like structure in a sense. We had scripts, like we were scripted, but like now it's so not structured with a script. I don't have scripts or anything. I just do it because that's the way it works in my life. And nobody cares. Nobody cares if I'm saying, nobody cares if I fuddle words. Nobody cares. So, and I like listening to podcasts that are conversational and people mess up and nobody cares. So why would I not portray myself that way? I don't know. I thought at first I needed to be perfect. And then the second thing I did was the topics weren't necessarily around building a freelance writing business. So what I did 2 years ago, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago now, I looked at everything. I looked at like my framework for my business and I went, every episode of the Savage Scribe podcast should derive from one of these things. So then when you say like, I'm so glad I looked at your episode and there was one on LinkedIn right away because everything from the course, from the book are translated into podcast episodes, translated into social media posts, blog posts, because it's what it's what I want the podcast to be around. So that's what I noticed too. Is like I didn't even have like a structure for like content buckets in a sense of like what we're even going to be talking about. We just talk about anything and it wasn't like structured.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just recently started, well, I guess I've been doing it for a year, but I've been doing it very sporadically. And I'm trying to be more consistent with my own podcast of the Healthy Nurse Connection. And yes, I am very much like you said, well, it's funny because I would do one, I'd be like, I don't know if that sounds good. Should I re-record it? And not anything against like yours not being polished, but like if yours was like that, I was like, well, if she can do it that way, then I can do it that way. So then it took the pressure off of me because
Yes,
I'm the same way. I like it when it's more like conversational and it's more authentic that way. I feel
it
like,
is. It totally is.
yeah,
And those people that can afford like high-end editors to add little sound bites in between, that's great. But most of us out in this podcast space don't have that, and we just want to get our message out there and in a friendly, like conversational way. So why would we not talk like this? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. So that was really like, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do it, and we're just gonna see where it goes. And so
I
that's
love it. That's the
yeah,
mindset. It's just you just have to do it. And then eventually you'll look back and go, well, I sounded dumb. That's okay. I don't anymore. Like that everybody, if you listen to anybody's like podcast that's been around a long time, go back to their first episodes. You'll listen and go, wow, they didn't know what they were doing. But over time it gets a little bit easier. I now outline like a bunch of episodes before recording, and I'll just batch them. I'll just do a bunch at once because it takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot to go, okay, we're going to record one. Okay, let me get Zoom going and make sure my audio is good. All right, I'm going to save it. Like it's for me, it's better just to do a few at a time. And I just pick a day of the week and I'm like good for the month.
yeah. That's what
Really
I'm in 2024. That's where I'm trying to get. Like, I'm trying to be more intentional and even like record even 3 months because there's times when I get
Yes.
so busy that I can't even think
Yes.
about sitting down and looking at it. So I'm trying to like think ahead and structure it more where I can just have them done like 3 months ahead of time. So it's like off my plate for a while.
Yeah, there was a time like back, actually, I know it was like episode like 130-ish of the podcast. And for whatever reason, that week was just like insane. Like there was no way I was going to get an episode out. I was like, I got to do something because blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to think and then like write and then try and do an episode because I'm like, that isn't, no one's going to get anything out of that. I did like the top episodes and we did a replay series. I'm like, for the next 3 weeks, we're just doing replays and I will get back on track. So we had something out there and it was just replays. I'm like, well,
That's
people
a
are
good
going
idea
back to
though.
episode one anyway. Yeah, I mean, it worked out. It was like, it was better than me trying to fuddle around, trying to come up with topics that are different and valuable
Yeah.
rather than like, yeah, let's just replay the good ones.
Yeah. I just published my 10th one, so I probably shouldn't replay them yet
No
because
replay yet. No
I'd be
replay
like, wait a minute,
yet.
this just happened last week.
All in due time. I will tell you too, I found like a lot of guests and stuff in Facebook groups. So if you need guests, that's always a hard thing too. That's the one thing I try to do too. I did like solo episodes and then
Uh-huh.
guest episodes. So it took the pressure off me to think of a topic every single time.
Right.
And because it's tough
Yeah,
when
it
you
is
get up
tough.
there.
Yeah. But yeah, what I really enjoy about it and what I've really like it sparks like the continuing of the podcast is that so what the whole reason I started the Healthy Nurse Connection podcast was because when I got into freelance writing too, I started to see all the struggles of nursing. Cause just like when you're in LinkedIn and you start to hear about, like all the struggles everywhere. So like I was burnt out in
Yes.
my own career, but I learned pretty quickly that that was not just me. It was like the whole nursing profession. We get burnt out so easily. And so I wanted to do something to like help reach out to nurses to say, like, it's not just you if you're feeling this way, there are things that you can do. So you're not alone and there's things you can do to kind of help make you feel better and like reignite your passion for nursing. Because writing is what did that for me. And then I started to notice all the other people on LinkedIn who are kind of doing the same thing in their own way. And so I
Mm-hmm.
really want like the Healthy Nurse Connection to be a place where we can all like meet and talk about what we're all doing and like share
Yeah.
our information. So that's why like I loved connecting with you today because you made like a big impact, not just like in my writing life, but it also like reignited the passion in my nursing life because
I've heard that before from other students, and it's because and it did for me too, because I was like, I'm finally not burnt out. Like I finally feel relief and that I'm doing something a little bit different, but it's still for the good, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, that was so important to me too. I didn't want to like go into a different realm of not being able to help people. So I had to
Right.
like restructure my brain to say, how am I still helping? And you are. Every day you write something, you're finding you're writing something that's evidence-based. It's better than what the patient's bringing you from, whatever they found on Google,
Right.
which I mean, it's insane what they would come with. And I don't know. I think then you get to have that recognition with your family, with your friends, with having that flexibility that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
It gives you a little more of a purpose, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think just tapping into that, your creative side, I think it's
Hmm.
so good for your own mental health. Like we forget, and it's not writing for everybody. Like some people like hate
Yeah,
writing. And so then this is not for you. I've seen other nurses who really got into painting, or like, crafting,
baking, yeah,
whatever. Yeah. Whatever it is.
gardening.
Whatever it is that like makes your heart happy, like we need to do those more often. We need to like find a place where we can do those and still be productive. So
Prioritize it too. I
yes.
think the other thing, like my niece is deciding like she might want to be a nurse, right? I think I want to be a teacher or a nurse or sports medicine something. And it's like even in school, it's like that's all they get, a nurse. They have no idea what this career can evolve to just with one degree. So I think too another message, if you're not a writer, like you said, find something that ignites your passion. And it might not be the bedside anymore, but there's so many other options as a nurse that you can do that you probably don't even know exists. And I think the Healthy Nurse Connection is going to touch on a lot of those because there's, you should probably interview like some nurses that are outside, not just starting their own businesses, but in a different type of career. And that's
Yeah.
not bedside because I think those aren't, we don't have any, that isn't shed on us in nursing school of what else you can do besides our core curriculum of different specialties. It's
Right.
just, it's wild. The more
Yeah.
the longer you're in it, you're like, oh, I didn't know that job existed. Or
Yeah.
I've met with like marketing managers at companies. Yeah, I'm a nurse too. I'm like, no way. So cool.
Yeah. I know. It is pretty amazing like what else is out there. So yeah, so I want to be like I want to educate like the nursing community and build my own community of nurses who like support each other and like know
Yes.
that it's more than just bedside. Like we are very valuable in other areas of the world as well. Yes.
So are you still going to build your freelance business this year?
Yes, so I'm still writing. I'm still doing like, my full-time education, and I'm still like working on it on the side, but it's nice because I'm in my semester right now at school. So I need to take like a short break from
Yeah,
everything. And then when this summer it starts to slow down, so then I'll pick it up a little bit more.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I love it. I love how it works out. And
Yeah.
soon enough, you're going to have people reaching out to you for opportunities because they've seen you work with those other clients too.
Yeah. Hopefully, I hope it gets to that point.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool when it happens though.
So if you had to give, so if there's a nurse listening who's like, I think I want to give this a try, like what would your like top 3 or 5 tips be for them to get started?
So what's cool now, which is different than it was last year, you can do a test of our membership for 30 days free. So that's like, I don't want anybody to go into it and not know what it's about. So if you go to savvynursewriter.com, click on membership, you'll be able to get a free membership for 30 days. You go through the entire course. You could come to our events, all the things, and go, okay, this is for me, or heck no, I'm done. I'm not signing up. Easy enough. And we used to have it where you purchase different things, like different workshops or different bundles or whatever. And now it's all in one. And we also have, this is something important too, that we connected. We notice a lot of nurses come into the course and they're like, I don't even know if I'm a good writer. I know I like to write, but I have no idea if I'm good at it. So we included our writing course where it's a basic course and you walk away with samples. So you walk away with 5 samples of work that's already edited that you've learned from, and you can use it as samples for clients. So it kind of connects those dots. And our instructor for that's just incredible. She's a English teacher at the college level. So it's like, and she has a bunch of health background. It's amazing. So all that, like you can even start that when you're in the membership. Like it's whatever you want to do, which I think is just I had to have a different mindset about that. Like people don't know, and I didn't know, and you didn't know. So if we walk into it and you don't want to waste money and you don't want to throw it away, it's something to just get your feet wet, check it out, check out my podcast, check out my book, and see if it's right for you.
Yeah. Cause I mean, their podcast, like I've said multiple times, it was really helpful because it was like, as soon as I was getting stuck in something or not sure how to do something, then you would talk about it and be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, now I know how to do
Yeah. And
it.
if you search like the archives, like there's everything connects, like I said, well, at least from like 2021 on, everything connects. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Just go to the website, savvynursewriter.com. And oh, and you can add yourself to our database. So when I have clients that might need work from a certain type of nurse, we look through our database and we're like, hey, do you want to try out this? And that's another way to like use the job board. Like if sometimes I won't post a job on the job board, I'll just email the people that are in our database and see if they're interested in it before we post it, because especially if they have a certification or something that fits that specialty well, I'd rather just go with them than put it out there for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
where can we find you? What's the address?
for
Or
the website,
the website? Yeah.
savvynursewriter.com.
Seven
There
Nurse
you will
Writer.
find everything, all the social channel, all the things. But for my listeners, Leslie, tell me where we can find you.
So my website is thehealthynurseconnection.org. So you can go there. I think you can Google it too, and it will pop up now, which is very exciting.
Woohoo!
And so you can find our list there's like the podcast area. And so you can find a list of our podcasts and link to that. And then I'm like you are, I'm on Apple and Spotify and all the places you listen to podcasts. So you can find us there as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think this episode's going to be on both of our podcasts. So, find my podcast, find Leslie's podcast, and you'll be able to listen to this episode again and again if you want.
Yes. Yes, because we are trying to find a way to get things done more efficiently. So instead of recording two separate ones, we're just like, let's just answer all the questions that we have.
Let's just talk together. And it gives you guys that little bit of like experience and then the newbie side. So we hope it helps you guys that are out there. We want to hear some feedback, so let us know.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming on and talking with me. This was really a great conversation.
And thank you for coming on and talking to me. It was a great conversation.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Take care.
All right. Bye.